Hey everybody, so in this video I'm hoping to continue to talk about performance practice for pianists and other musicians. I'm here at, I think it's Brookfield Place. It's also, apparently this is North Cove Marina. And the sun's just going down now, literally. And it's quite nice here. My wife and I actually, we're here like a lot actually. Summer and even recently. I feel like there's a lot of nice indoor and outdoor space here, so it's quite pretty. So yeah, I mean, in terms of performance practice, I started talking a little bit in the last video about of course cold performance, and that means of course you can do your stretches and everything initially if you want before you start playing, but more or less you'll just launch right into the piece that you're literally hoping to perform for others, or the piece that you're currently working on. So instead of doing scales, finger exercises and so on, you just pretty much sit down and just perform your piece right away. And this is because in like a real performance situation, you're likely going to just take a bow and then just sit down and perform immediately. If friends, family ask you to play, you can say like, oh, let me warm up a bit, let me take a moment to get ready. It honestly looks a lot better if you can just sit down, perform your piece immediately. I think another good thing to do is to not try to remove pressure from yourself. So we tend to like to make excuses. We tend to say like, oh, I didn't get to warm up today yet. I didn't get to practice so much this week. Oh, this is just a work in progress. This is going to be really bad, et cetera, et cetera. But, by just shutting up, not saying anything beforehand, that's a lot more like what a real performance situation would be. Because in a real performance, you're not going to be able to explain anything to the audience. You also will remove pressure by having all these excuses. The other person will kind of know all the reasons why you won't play well beforehand, and this kind of makes it easier to perform, which you don't want. You actually do want to make it as difficult as possible, right? To generate pressure for yourself, to make yourself nervous, and so on. So that's kind of like cold performance in general. Now, in terms of like performance challenges, well, I'd say first of all, it's a great idea to just do cold performance on a regular basis. This means every day as you're starting off your practice routine, cold performance always first, because it's a very small amount of time for a very big return. I would say another thing that's very easy to add on is to just set up your recording device, whether it be your phone or something else. Just set it up, so that you can see your face, your hands, the keyboard of the piano, of course, and and this way you can always just watch the recording right afterwards. And I'll talk about this probably in a future video, but it's a great way to gather feedback, improve your listening. It'll improve your playing, honestly, almost immediately, just literally recording yourself and listening to the recording. Because the recording will help to generate pressure as well, too, and you'll gather feedback. So anyway, in terms of performance challenges, this is if you're doing what it is I just said, doing the cold performance, perhaps even doing recording, and it's going pretty well. It seems on average to be producing a good result. So then you have to start to make things more difficult, because the real performance situation is virtually never going to be an ideal, like normal scenario, so to speak. There may be somebody's phone that goes off, there may be somebody coughing, there may be some loud sound in the background, you may not be feeling the best, maybe you don't get to warm up on the piano, or there could be many different reasons why things aren't ideal. The lighting could be strange, it could be unusually hot or cold, you might get sweaty hands, so for all these reasons and more, it's good to practice under conditions that are not ideal. And since it's difficult to simulate the exact conditions, like down to the, really like it'll be exactly like this, because there will always be unexpected things that happen. So instead, just generally put yourself into like different difficult situations, and you'll start to be extremely adaptable. So for instance, weather's getting cold here in New York. practicing with freezing hands is really one of the easiest things to do. Just keep your hands out of your pockets. Don't wear gloves or mittens or whatever it may be, and then just go home and then just try to perform the piece, even if you can barely even feel your fingers. I think I wouldn't overdo this, but it's still really enlightening as to what you're still able to do under those conditions. Obviously, sweaty hands, if you've just gone to the gym, you're like drenched in sweat. It could be that the stage lights would be really hot in whatever performance situation you're in, or you get nervous. So sweaty hands, that's also an excellent one. You can perform with like a huge coat on. That's very easy to do right now as well, while you're carrying a backpack or other bag as well. Any like articles of clothing and so on that just make it uncomfortable or inconvenient to play. I would say also like changing your lighting conditions, different lights, turning the lights off, making it extra bright. Obviously performing on different instruments if at all possible. If you're on a keyboard, at times you can change the sound settings of the keyboard. It could be like a different piano sound, different volumes. You could also wear headphones or not wear headphones, depending on what it is that you normally do. If you're a morning person, perform at night. If you're a night person, perform in the morning. Whatever is the most inconvenient time for you, you should go ahead and do that. Anytime you think to yourself, like, this is, really not a good time to perform, I'm especially stressed, distracted, I have like a meeting in 5 minutes, just go ahead and perform under those conditions. Really for any reason, if you think it's not a good time to play, it's probably the best time to play right now, because it's going to be stressful, it's going to be distracting and such in the real performance. Let's see, what else? I talked about lighting earlier, of course. Totally in the dark is always a good idea as well too. It's got some bicyclists going by. And what else? Of course, performing for other people. That's really one of the best possible conditions under which to practice, because normally you'll get nervous, you'll be uncomfortable. I think you can purposely ask family members or friends or other pianists that you know to listen to you through Zoom, in person if possible, different situations like that. Really sit them down and say, like, this is a performance. You can practice with bows before and after if you're preparing for a real performance. But in any case, you just set it up as something that's more formal. That may be strange in and of itself, because we're not so used to that with our close family and friends. And also, honestly, if things are just distracting in general, you can set your phone or other device so that alarms go off at random times. You can put on a television really loud in the background. You can actually ask family members or friends or whoever you live with purposely to go in and out and create distractions during the performance. If you have pets, if you have like screaming children, if you live someplace where when you open the windows or whatever, it's just, there's like sirens all around. This is all excellent practice. Anything that can cause you to mess up at all is extremely useful. And this is the opposite of what most people think. They think like, these are not the ideal conditions to perform, so I'm not going to try to perform. But instead, just about anything can be used to your advantage. Honestly, I've had performance. I had a performance where I had like really bad stomach ache while I was performing, and didn't go away during intermission either for whatever reason. Also, like, there was some issue with the car, so I was supposed to have much more warm-up time, and instead I had almost none. And I've honestly performed under worse conditions than that as well. There's also been times when I performed and I was honestly completely drenched in sweat because of the stage lights, and honestly my hands always like sweat and get cold. That doesn't really go away for me particularly. And there have been others that I know that they may shake or all sorts of different physiological reactions. But yeah, anytime you find something that initially you might not be happy about it, you might say like, usually I'm totally fine, it's really just because of this one condition that's caused me to mess up. Playing for your teacher, playing for In any kind of more formal situation, at first we might become discouraged, but instead we can flip our mindset and think like, oh, this is extremely useful in terms of performance training. Now that I've found this thing that can cause me to mess up, I should use it as much as I can, gather information, because every time that I mess up, I'm learning more about where the hidden weak points actually are, where it is I want to focus, where it is that when I just do regular detailed practice, I can't, see the hidden dangers. So yeah, hope some of these ideas are helpful. It's definitely not an exhaustive list. It's just what leaps to mind. Somebody else brought up recently doing like 25 jumping jacks, or running for a while, like before sitting down and performing. I think that's really smart because your heart rate's going to be going. So I think that's also a good idea. I guess you could also spin in a circle like 10 or 12 times. That'll make you pretty distracted and dizzy as well. But yeah, hope some of these ideas are helpful, both the actual ideas themselves and of course the mindset behind them. So yeah, and even right now, because it's getting colder, I'll probably try the freezing hands thing myself very soon. So if you found this helpful, please like, subscribe, perhaps leave a comment. And this is being recorded before Thanksgiving here in the US, so happy Thanksgiving to everybody that's watching. Probably this won't be posted until after Thanksgiving, so I hope you had a good one, and I will see you in the next video.